Churchill's burst in the Oval Office. Former President George W. Bush left behind the Churchill burst in the Oval Office at the end of his 2 terms. The incoming president, Barack Obama, returned the burst to the residence of the British ambassador to the United States, Sir Peter Westmacott, an act seen by some as antipathy to what Churchill stood for. From the onset, it is important to understand how inseparable Africa's past is from its present condition. Kenya's struggle and violent resistance for the right to vote and self-determination from British colonial rule was intense, and the after effects most likely found their way at the highest echelons of American politics. President George W. Bush was a huge fan of Winston Churchill, and he asked the British for a big growling burst of Churchill, which found its place near his desk in the Oval Office at the White House in July of 2001. When asked why this association with Churchill, President Bush said, "Why would you be interested in having the burst of an Englishman in your Oval Office?" And the answer is because he was one of the great leaders in the 20th century. He was an enormous personality. He stood on principle. He was a man of great courage. He knew what he believed, and he really kind of went after it in a way that seemed like a Texan to me. He wasn't afraid of public opinion polls. He wasn't afraid of. He didn't need focus groups to tell him what was right. He charged ahead, and the world is better for it. Hussein Onyango Obama, whose grandson Barack Hussein Obama was to later become the President of the United States of America, was also remanded in the Gulag. Onyango Obama was tortured and endured a 2-year incarceration without trial in the British Gulag for resisting Churchill's imperial rule. Dan Pfeiffer, assistant and senior advisor to President Obama, insisted that the claims that President Obama started his presidency by returning to the British Embassy the burst of Winston Churchill that had graced the Oval Office was 100% false and an urban legend that continues to circulate to this day. Mr. Pfeiffer also said that the burst is still in the White House, in the residence outside the treaty room. Mr. Pfeiffer's facts were disputed. The White House has had a burst of Winston Churchill since the 1960s, given to President Lyndon B. Johnson by the British in 1965. This is the burst believed to still be in the residence outside the treaty room. At the beginning of President Bush's administration in 2001, then Prime Minister Tony Blair of UK lent President Bush a burst that matched the one in the White House. It's this version of the burst that was returned. Governor Mitt Romney affirmed this fact too. The Republican challenger to the incumbent President Obama's second-term bid in 2012 promised to return Churchill's burst to the Oval Office. Speaking at a fundraiser at London's Mandarin Oriental Hotel, Governor Romney confirmed the burst had been removed and promised his audience that "I am looking forward to the burst of Winston Churchill being in the Oval Office again." President Obama replaced Churchill's burst with that of civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the White House's Oval Office as evidence that Obama holds King's legacy close to home. Be blessed.